Project 2 for Math 114 residentially is on causes of death in 1980 and 2016. There are two documents that you're going to need. The first one is the instructions Word document, and the other document is actually the Excel file, and you can find both of those in the course. When you look at those two documents, the first one is what we're going to be going through today together. We're going to go through the directions, make sure we understand all of the pieces. However, the document on the right is a more detailed data sheet, okay? And you're going to need to look at some of those detailed things in order to answer the questions for this project. U.S. population by age group in 1980 and 2016. So this is a table that's in our first Word document, and it just looks at the overall population. Now that's useful, but we're going to look at population with respect to death. Okay, so what we're going to do in part 1 is we're going to calculate deaths per 1,000 people for all three age groups in both sets of years. So that's going to be 6 different answers. And so I want you to do that for part 1. For part 2, we're going to calculate the same thing, deaths per 1,000 people, with one cause of death of your choosing and one group. And then we're going to compare for 2 different years. So one cause, one group, but comparing the 2 different time frames. Part 3, you get to select a cause of death, and I want you to look specifically at the older 2 age groups, 25 to 44 and 45 to 64. And then I want you to compare only the 2016 data. So we're really narrowing down, but you get to pick which cause of death you do there. And the last part is our biblical reflection. Part 4 is what value might there be in thinking about death and these types of problems. So that's the quick overview of the assignment. As we go a little bit deeper, we're going to use in each one of these problems, each part is we're going to use this formula right here, the number of deaths per 1,000 people. Okay, and that formula is just simply the number of deaths divided by the population in that group multiplied by 1,000. You don't need to round your answer to the nearest whole number. Give me a couple decimal places, but you don't need to give more than 4. The other thing you need to do for this part is I want you to look at the data that you've just calculated, and I want you to cite a reference to discuss what might be accounting for the changes in the death rates for the age groups over these years. Is there one group that's becoming less prone to dying? And if so, why do you think that might be? Okay, and then what you can do is you can find that reference, and then you can discuss it, just 50 words. You don't need to cite it in APA format or MLA or Turabian. Just copy a link in there, it would be great, so I can see where you're coming from. Part 2 says we're not going to look at the overall death rates, but specific causes of death. And specific cause of death in both 1980 and 2016 for one age group. So you also want to cite a reference for this. So let's say you're looking at one age group, and that age group is the oldest age group, and you notice that there's a decrease in heart disease as a cause of death in those 2 time periods. You might need to do some Googling to find an article that can explain why that might be the case, okay? Once you find that article, give a little bit of discussion on what the article says, of at least 50 words describing why is there that change in rates over those time periods. The third part is I want to be a little bit more specific. I want you to look at 2 age groups, the 25 to 44 and the 45 to 64. And I want you to compute the number of deaths for both people for the same cause of death. And I also want you to look at just the 2016 data. Okay, so don't look across time. I just really want to know, how is one cause of death different between these 2 groups? Again, you're going to want to cite a reference, so I just need a website, a URL of an article that you can find that talks about that cause of death and why those age groups might be different. And then discuss about it for just at least 40 words, not much. You don't need to go into too much detail. The last part of this project is to contemplate what the Bible says about death and thinking about these things, and just respond with at least 100 words to some questions along those lines, like what value might there be in thinking about the admittedly uncomfortable subject of the end of all mankind. Please pay close attention to any additional specifications provided by your professor. Professors will often clarify their expectations regarding the format and presentation of your submission. You might just need to submit a Word document, and you might want to take out a lot of the data that's already in there.